we really do get smarter with time. Because way back when, you couldn't tell me nothing about Peterson. I was a ride or die for Peterson. But now, I see that Peterson and Sergeant Waters were cut from the same cloth. I can't stay. Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Tyra here with another struggle review, here to discuss A Soldier Story. Now this movie is from 1984 and it stars Denzel Washington, Howard E. Rollins, Adolph Caesar, just all kind of everybody was here. Now before we get into all things, get your fucking hands off me. I need you guys to drop down and subscribe to my channel and like this video. I'm going to give you guys a moment to do that. Then we're going to come back and discuss. This movie needs to be talked about more. If not for the subject matter, then for the cast, the representation, World War II and whatnot. Discuss this movie with a friend. It's long overdue.
Go back.
Now that you guys have hopefully subscribed to see more of me, let's get into this movie. But before we jump into the video, I have to give a shout out to the person who paid for and requested this film. So if you happen to just yell to the top of your lungs, the day of the Geechee is over, it's not because of me. It's because of this person right here. Thank you so much for supporting me and paying for this content. Now, getting into this movie was directed by Norman Jewison. He has a lot of credits under his name. Movies like Moonstruck, The Fiddler on the Roof, Rollerball, In the Heat of the Night, and another one of my favorites with Denzel Washington, The Hurricane. Now, Norman is all right with me because at the time, nobody believed in this movie or cared about it being made, which ended up being a measly $6 million. A lot of the actors here worked for way more than they were worth because they were just that passionate about the movie. A 1944 World War II mystery drama with almost an all-black male cast set in a time where Jim Crow laws were still in place, segregation, racism, yet and still many black soldiers chose to be patriotic, represent, and fight for a country that didn't even care about them or respect their noble ambitions, which is why a movie like this one is so important. Majority of war, action/drama movies rarely acknowledge or depict black soldiers being there at all. Even the director here, Norman, barely had a salary to ensure that this movie was made. Everybody involved with this project sacrificed because they knew just how important the message and the representation was. And if nothing else, this is a good ass movie. Now, majority of the main cast here returned to their roles based on a play from 1981 written by Charles Fuller, which would explain why Denzel Washington, Larry Riley, and especially Adolph Caesar were so convincing in the film. They already had so much history with the off-Broadway play. Just so many outstanding performances here. Every single actor here hits differently from a technical standpoint. Everybody showed up and showed out. But this was the very first movie that I saw Howard E. Rollins in, and then later Ragtime. Phenomenal. Roots, The Next Generation, King. I was honestly surprised that I didn't see more credits to his name. Mentally, I just felt like I saw him more when it was actually just the love I had for him as an actor. I just always found him to be so outstanding, just a scene stealer. Unfortunately, he, as well as his passion, suffered in many ways, especially from drugs and alcohol. So talented and hindered from reaching his full potential. With where he was, I would hate to see where he would have ended up if he was like healthy and at his full capacity. Dudes would have been in trouble because he would have definitely been up there with all of the greats. But I'm always happy to see his caliber of acting immortalized in his past work, especially with movies like this one. I was also really shocked to see that he, as well as Larry Riley, the actor who portrays CJ here, both succumbed to the same AIDS disease and died at very early ages. Tragic. Now, we began in 1944 on a Louisiana Army base way deep down in the country where blacks are still considered to be colored. And a 65-year-old man is still referred to as a boy. We are patiently waiting for an opportunity to fight in the war. Now, Miss Patty, aka Big Mary, is singing to a bar full of soldiers about whiskey, especially a very drunk Sergeant Vernon Waters, who was killed in the dead of night, leaving his right-hand man, Private Wilkie, in charge to only be met with disrespect from a barrack of young black soldiers. Now, who actually killed Sergeant Waters, we really don't know, but it's rumored to have been the KKK or even the mention of 2 white soldiers, because naturally, none of us black soldiers would desire to kill a fellow black sergeant. But without a witness in sight, who can really be sure? Captain Richard Davenport is here to make sure we find out. I love the running gag of everybody on the base assuming that he's going to be a white man. Due to his ranking and position, he is forcefully given only 3 days by the commanding officer to solve this case. Who would honestly much rather be done with it? After all, this is not going to do anything but make it worse, and who really cares? A distinguished, driven Captain Davenport from Washington, that's who has every intention on solving this mystery, no matter the cost. The only thing we know for sure as an audience is Sergeant Waters' last words to said triggerman were, with diabolical ass laughter, "They still hate you." Now, right away, I love the setting, the lighting, and the atmosphere in this movie. With it being set down south and it being so freaking hot, it complements the intensity that everyone has in the movie. Everybody is so freaking sweaty and anxious all the time, and it just feels like one big pressure cooker. This story is so character driven and so well developed that it has you as a viewer taking pride in some of the smallest things in this movie, such as the joy on every single black man's face, especially Corporal Ellis, the funny, enthusiastic driver, aka Robert Townsend, just at the fact that someone in a higher ranking position looks just like them. Not only does it make you feel all warm, but it will instantly remind your ass of a lot of the things that we take for granted. Now, though the high-ranking, black, educated Captain Davenport is filled with so much dedication and so much passion for this case, he is also filled with a whole lot of pressure. I love the way that we have Howard Rollins acting with his entire body here, constantly fidgeting, adjusting himself up on arrival, making sure he looks the part, with statements like being sure to act accordingly and be a credit to your race clearly being spoken to him way too often. Probably working harder than anybody else to get to where he is, yet and still we are always undermined, questioned about our means, our background, our education, because we need to know why out of all people, especially us, you qualify to be here. But that's only half the battle. You can't properly pursue this case because everyone in town, no matter who you are in your ranking, will solely only see you as a nigga and treat you as such. Now, I love Captain Davenport so much because no matter how much pushback he gets and how nervous he really is, he presents a good front up for the entirety of the movie from the very beginning, demanding respect, demanding to be seen, demanding to be heard, making sure to get his salute from those lower ranking officers. Just such a strong representation of a different type of black man that was emerging in 1944. I felt like this story would have had a whole different narrative if somebody like Sergeant Waters actually got to see him like everybody else. Representing that a change is coming and that anything is possible. He is a fish out of water, pursuing a case as hard as he can, even though he knows himself that he was sent there as a joke. A black captain investigating a black sergeant's murder, even though they know deep down that neither one of these men would be respected. Davenport wants to solve this case to prove what he's capable of, even in spite of the stipulations that are placed upon him. Watching this recently now and getting into his body language, him being nervous at times, seeming like he's giving a lot of thought and second guessing himself, I feel like this was his very first case ever. Let the damn investigation begin. Now, as we simultaneously get to know every single man in this platoon and investigate this murder, we also get to know just the kind of man that Sergeant Waters was. All spit and shoe polish. Oh my Lord. Adolph Caesar is a damn force. With his background in theater, as a dancer, on soap operas, all the voiceovers, background, he is absolutely a treasure. Known mostly for his role as old Mister in The Color Purple. You know, I commends you, Miss Seeley. Not many women's allow their husband's hoe to lay up in their house. My name ain't Squeak. My name Mary Agnes. Mary what? Like, he has such a strong energy to be reckoned with this strong, distinctive voice that was given to him courtesy of a bad case of laryngitis as a child. And it lends itself so well to this particular role. He is so unlikable here with that strong, deep-rooted hatred that he has. Phenomenal actor. Quick to strip a man of his rank no matter the proximity and the rapport that he has with them. As a black man, especially a black man like this one, the one that finds his worth in his proximity to whiteness. Which is why when he refers and addresses his platoon, we often call them niggas instead of soldiers, trying to control and dominate them in a psychological way as well as a physical way, instilling fear, often verbally and physically abusing them at his own leisure, as well as abusing his power that comes along with his position. Who does that sound like? Did anybody else feel like the Louisiana Army base, the white man in the position of power that they were in, you know, the wives and how they were interacting with the soldiers, the way that they were left to just do leisure work and odd jobs around the Army base at the request of a commanding officer, as well as them, you know, making time to let them go out and play a little baseball? Between Sergeant Waters and Peterson and everybody else who was running around that base, didn't it just feel like one big plantation? You know, we have Sergeant Waters over there as the overly devoted, disturbed house nigga, and then we have somebody like Peterson, the rebel, the runaway slave, who has a severe, strong hatred for what he feels like this house nigga represents. It was just me. It was just me. All right. We could definitely tell that generation-wise, they weren't far removed from that in this movie. The closer I am to whiteness, the better off I'll be. The better off we will all be. We represent each other. Seeing you is seeing me. And I, Sergeant Vernon Waters, demand to be seen a certain way. And there is no room for error. Absolutely sinister, gleeful, yet disgusting in his pursuit. We weed out the soldiers that we deem to be an ignorant discredit to our race. The men who are overly content with just simply being left behind, being a nigga with no ambitions to grow and advance beyond it. Or even the ones I have a mere contempt for simply because they challenge me. CJ and Peterson. Now CJ, who just happens to be the only soldier who feels like the Army will eventually integrate, is well liked, he's strong, cornbread fed, fresh off the farm, guitar playing, song singing, optimistic soldier from Mississippi. It was very gone way to leave, won't be back no more, going back down south, child, don't you want. It was very Muddy Waters. Vernon Waters feels like CJ hasn't progressed beyond his slave mentality. The way he speaks, the way he performs, the hoodoo spirituality, the storytelling, the lack of education. I believe that CJ was illiterate, all while having that strong sensation to make up songs on the fly. that always reflect the current situation, which outside of baseball helps the other soldiers find laughter and joy within their circumstances, the way that they're treated within life, and the way that they're treated by their very own army and army sergeant. Not only is CJ a big, strong, strapping buck, but we have trained ourselves to be optimistic no matter the circumstance, no matter the situation. Very jolly, trained to go, trained to endure, trained to sympathize with somebody like Waters, who is clearly his oppressor. What does that sound like? With CJ always finding a reason to persevere, not only persevere, but persevere with a smile, he is not much unlike a slave, reminding every white person that sees him, as far as Waters is concerned, of those good old days when we were in the fields and we knew our place. In Waters' mind, in his burning mind, this nigga needs to be eradicated. This ignorant, low-class Geechee. Now, if anybody was ever wondering, a Geechee is a descendant of West African slaves who retained the culture, the history, and the linguistics. Many bluesmen, guitar players, and musicians used the term Geechee in their stage names at the time. That is a boss boy's hiding something like Geechee. The day of the Geechee is over. Like, I love just how strong somebody like Sergeant Waters was in his motive, not even understanding until it was too late that just like CJ, he had a slave mentality as well. And then there's Peterson. Let's talk about Peterson, aka Denzel Washington. Fresh off of Broadway, well, off Broadway, low-key one of his very first movie roles. How do I let the people know, the people back there know, that Denzel Washington has arrived? Get your fucking hands off me, like. Love it. I love the fact that that is here, and even in a role like the one from Glory when he tells Morgan Freeman, get your fucking hands off me, nigga. Like, Denzel showed up to tell everybody and their mama to get their fucking hands off me. Peterson is here, and he is probably the only one in that platoon who refuses to back down to somebody like Sergeant Peterson, even outright calls him a creep. You get off on feeling superior to us. I love the very first encounter, the real encounter that we get in between Peterson and Waters. It's one of the many times that we have Waters display self-hatred. He won't degrade his soldiers in front of the white captain to present a fake front of who he wants to be perceived to be, hoping to achieve a notch, and just maybe the request for my man to do something more than just stand idly by being lazy will be put into action. But no, I'm ignored. However, somebody like CJ, that I absolutely despise, is constantly praised for his ability to play baseball. Just so good, so relevant, so juicy. Most black people still to this day are the most revered who are in some form of entertainment. Can you sing a good song? Can you throw a ball through a hoop? All praises to you. Incidents like this one put Captain Waters on edge more and more behind CJ, to the point that he obsesses over CJ and it's all he ever talks about. I love how he constantly resorts to what he knows best, or rather the white slave master that he is trying so hard to imitate, telling Peterson to meet him outside so that he can physically teach him a lesson by beating his ass in front of everyone to make a statement, make an example out of him, and so that Peterson knows his place. Unlike CJ, Peterson doesn't care to sympathize or identify what's so wrong with Sarge and why he would behave in the manner that he does. In a strong way, he's filled with his own obsession, just like the Sarge, and would much rather fight him and take him down. Now, we do get to finally witness the actual run-in that Waters has with the two white men, where he admits that he hates himself. Right before he gets assertive with them, opinionated, standing in what he's not going to take anymore, and is beating up for it. Now, Waters not only hates himself for what he feels like the white man has made him do. I've done all of these things trying to appease the white man, be like the white man to no fault. But I also internally hate myself due to what was passed down to me by my own father. What to do, how to do it, how to talk, what I need to do to push beyond who my own father was, stating that he couldn't even read or write, but he made a way, clearly wanting his son to make a way too. But a twisted Waters internalizing this has done so much in his lifetime to appease white men to the point that it is killing him, and he doesn't want to do it anymore. Because after all, no matter what I do, what I sacrifice, they still hate you. Waters believed that he could kill two birds with one stone, incriminate CJ with the gun, only to antagonize him into hitting him to have him falsely arrested and sentenced for hitting his superior, not only ridding himself of CJ in his presence, but earning himself yet another strike. When I tell you I fall out every single time we have Waters go and visit CJ and we find out that he is merely one of many of his targets through the years to earn his stripes. He has done this to many men that he felt like were a discredit to the race, was a Geechee, a sacrificial lamb, the niggas, the blacks can't afford you anymore. Like that whole little monologue that he gives to CJ made CJ absolutely losing his mind, knowing outright that he did nothing wrong and he shouldn't have been incriminated in the first place. So good, but it's sad. It's sad. Just to see that joy and that spark just completely disappear within CJ, faced with somebody like Waters, who even at his big age still had not realized that no matter how many stripes that you have, you are still going to be looked at in the same viewpoint that I am. That whole storytelling scene there is just some of the best acting, even from David Alan Grier there. Like, there's just so many people here, so much freaking talent here. With Waters claiming CJ to be a waste to the black race and him getting rid of himself, I assume that every other person that he did the same way that he did CJ just took it on the chin and served their time. And clearly an ignorant Waters expected CJ to do the same. But when CJ gives up and hangs himself, that wasn't expected, and this causes Waters to lose his freaking mind and accept who he's truly been this entire time. A house nigga. Now, though I didn't mention it all that much, Captain Taylor as well as Captain Davenport little banter within the story is extremely important. As I stated, with Davenport emerging as a different type of black man, you have somebody like Captain Taylor having to adjust, having to accept that, and also opening a door to not solely stand in solidarity with his own and entrust and help somebody like Davenport, showing that after all, he really does care about the black man here in this platoon. Solving this murder as well as helping Davenport along the way, even though they low-key can't stand each other. Their bantering does offer a layer of comedy within this movie. In the end, when Davenport finally gets his day in court and a chance to speak to these two soldiers who we feel like maybe did a little bit more than beat Sergeant Waters up and maybe shot him, though absolutely ignorant assholes, we do see the type of man that Captain Davenport is, a humble, honest man. Even though I would love, it would have been real smooth for him to throw those two men in jail and incriminate them, but that wouldn't make me any better than you all are. If you didn't do it, I can't arrest you. Let me go back to square one. I love that little side comment that we have Captain Taylor make to Captain Davenport when he's like, hey, maybe it was, some of these black men in this platoon. Just like, no. Besides, Negroes, black men aren't that devious. Like, adding more fuel to what Sergeant Waters would think. You still see us as slaves, still see us as weak, meek, inferior, docile. Y'all would never be so calculated as to kill each other. No. It also brings you back to Waters' story. How much damage can one ignorant Negro do? Sad part is he wasn't lying though. Sarge ain't never lied. Sarge long ago killed a fellow soldier for gladly pretending to do a dance, pretend to be a monkey, wear a tail, and a room full of white people as they fed him bananas. We killed this man and he still didn't realize what was so wrong with what he did. Though we went about it the wrong way, sadly, Sarge was not wrong in identifying that all black men and women do get painted with the same brush. This homegrown self-hatred passed down from his own father to despise anyone and anything that reminded him of a time like that one. In the end, we are left with Smalls and Peterson, the ones who vowed to do something about Waters and what he did to CJ. More so, Peterson. Peterson was so happy to see the man that he despised down on his knees in the dirt. Peterson is not far from Waters, which is why Waters actually liked him and planned to promote him. Though different, they clearly carried the same hatred. Peterson also instills fear into someone like Smalls to keep him quiet. Just like Waters with CJ, Peterson doesn't see any humanity, any worth in somebody like Waters and decides to kill him. Spewing that same hateful mentality towards Waters that he hated coming off of him in the first place, saying things like good riddance, he didn't mean anybody any good, or I didn't kill much. Who gave you the right, child? When Howard rolled up with his lines and the tear on cue, it's good, it's so good. It's just so freaking good. Who gave either one of you the right to decide who belonged here, who gets to be the right kind of black man or who isn't? You don't get to play God. Like, oh, it was good. It was good. Floetic. It's floetic. It was good. In the end, not only do we solve the case, but we get to go to war. I love the whole scene of them marching off, but it's just like, damn, in the end, this entire time we have been at war with each other when we are getting ready to go off to war where we would need nothing more than each other and depend on one another to fight for a country that doesn't give a damn about us. Like, oh God. So awesome, so awesome. This will always and forever be a great watch. I feel like every time I watch it, whether it's big or small, I learn something new. Go and watch A Soldier Story if you haven't already. Well, you guys, that was my review for A Soldier Story. I hope you enjoyed it. Please drop down and tell me if you did. Like, guys, please remember to leave those comments. I know when we're in the live and the chat is going, a lot of you leave comments there and then you peace out. Be sure to drop down and leave a comment, leave an emoji, leave whatever you'd like to. And of course, hit that like button because that helps me out immensely. Geechee? I look forward to reading you guys' comments. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. I'll see you guys next time for my next review. Bye.